Explain the Aviator, exactly what it is and how does it fit in your overall SUV strategy and, for that matter, vehicle strategy.
Thanks. So we just launched the Navigator, and Aviator goes right below it. It's a three-row crossover, and it's a really big deal for us at Ford. We used to have an Aviator in the Lincoln lineup many years ago. Now we're reintroducing this, but this one's really different. It's got plug-in, it's rear-wheel drive, it has phone as a key, a lot of new technology, and we think it's going to be a really good product for us.
So Jim, it strikes me that almost it shouldn't be called the auto show anymore. It should be called the SUV and truck show because there's been such an emphasis on SUVs and trucks. Yeah. And Ford is right in the forefront of that. I mean, I think you've said that as much as 86–90% of your vehicles are going to be SUVs and crossovers. How far are you going to take that, and what does it mean for something like the Continental? Does the Continental still exist 5 years from now?
Yeah, good question. Well, we just launched Continental, and it's doing really well. Unfortunately, the sedan business in the U.S. is really tough, but that's not the case globally. In China, the sedan business is really robust for us. In fact, Continental's up 90% this year in China. So it kind of depends on the market. But yes, Americans have moved to crossovers. And crossovers don't mean, you know, the two-box kind of Explorer products that like they did in the past. We have sporty ones now. They come in kind of all flavors. And the people really like the roominess, the functionality, as well as sitting up above traffic. And now Ford as a whole is going to these kind of products. We do them well. Navigator Expedition just launched. Explorer's been the top kind of three-row SUV in the U.S. for almost 7 years now. So it's in our wheelbase. We know how to do these vehicles very well.
So when you bring out a vehicle like the Aviator, how much of that is targeted on China? You referred to China. I mean, do you expect to sell as many in China or more in China than the United States or North America?
It's a good question. You know, China is now the largest, not only automobile market in the world, it's the largest premium market in the world. And for a brand like Lincoln, we really started from scratch just a few years ago. We now have 100 dealerships, and our sales are growing there exponentially. I think our sales last year were up almost 70% in China. It's a very important market for us. And you know, what's interesting, the Chinese customers like a lot of the same products that Americans do. So you can sell the same product in both markets, but you have to tune a little bit more for China. But one thing that's really different about China is electrification. We think about a quarter of the sales in China for the future for Lincoln are going to be electric. That's why we're launching this plug-in electric with twin turbocharged technology here in the U.S. and eventually in China.
So, Jim, as you say, China has become a very important market to you, to Ford in general, but specifically to Lincoln. And as you also say, you're sort of playing catch-up. I mean, it's relatively recently that you've gotten into the market. You're doing very well. What does that say about possible conflicts over trade with China? Suppose that there is a ramp-up in tariffs, as has been threatened, at least, promised maybe, by the President of the United States. Does that affect your business, or are you fine because you're making them over there and so it doesn't matter?
You know, it is a big deal. I mean, we export a lot of products from the U.S. to China. Everything from, you know, Raptors to Lincolns to Edges. So, you know, this is a very important trade relationship for a company like Ford. And we're really, you know, hoping that the governments can work through, you know, and maintain a really strong trade relationship. It's very important for companies like Ford.
So, Jim, one of the things that has gone forward are steel and aluminum tariffs. The last couple of earnings reports from Ford has specifically flagged the costs of inputs like steel and aluminum. How much are those tariffs being put on steel and aluminum going to affect your price situation and therefore your margin?
Dave, it's a really good question. So commodity prices like steel and aluminum have been going up in general, but the trade agreements that we're seeing now are going to add extra cost to our business. You know, Ford, almost all of our steel and aluminum, like more than 95%, comes from the U.S. So we're not that exposed, but any kind of tariff is going to add cost. And the reason is because some of the steel and aluminum we use is specialty, and that specialty material only comes from overseas mills. And so we will experience some incremental costs on top of kind of the backdrop of higher commodity headwinds.
Right. Well, one of the things that the president has said, and Special Trade Representative Lighthizer, is you can apply for a waiver if you can't get the steel and aluminum in the United States. Is Ford applying for those waivers right now in Washington?
We're going to do everything we can to make sure the company is competitive. And so not only are we looking to any possibility in working with the U.S. government, but we're also making sure that we're fit as a company, and that means redesigning our products, processes, and cutting costs, waste, because customers don't pay for waste.
Right.
And so we're doing everything we can as a company to offset those headwinds.
And finally, Jim, we have to talk about autonomous vehicles. Given that fatal crash in Tempe, Arizona, that involved an Uber car, didn't have anything to do with Ford. But where is Ford right now with respect to autonomous vehicles? We saw Waymo now has done a deal with Jaguar. Do you wish you'd done that deal with Waymo?
Yep. No, look, Ford is one of the top companies. We've invested in Argo in Pittsburgh. They're developing our robot driver, the VDS. What's different about Ford's AV bet is that we're developing an exclusive product based on hybrid technology, so we can run the vehicle 20 hours a day or plus. And that vehicle is going to be unique just for automated use. We're also betting on not just moving people in a hailing service, but also moving goods. We're working with partners like Postmates, even Domino's, Lyft, to develop those business models. And in fact, we're right in Miami right now, not only mapping the city, but also running the business model with drivers in the car, non-automated cars actually operating those services, and the drivers can't leave. They're simulating the AV experience, and boy, are we learning a lot in Miami.
Jim, do you anticipate more regulatory oversight now of the safety of these AV vehicles?
The accident is really an unfortunate development, but the reality is Ford's a 116-year-old company. Nothing is more important to us than safety and the brand itself. And for example, we have 2 safety drivers in every one of our Argo vehicles. Mm-hmm. This is really important for us because it is a new technology, and we do have to test on public roads in most difficult situations. We're learning a lot, and we're taking every precaution we can to protect not only our customers, but also pedestrians.